Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. It's nice to see you again. It's nice to have two opportunities today to ask about what's happening in the world. I want to start with Belarus because earlier today, the Free Belarus Caucus had a press conference with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is the pro-democracy leader of the movement there, and I think she is courageous and inspiring, and they need our help. One of the things we talked about is, given the war in Ukraine and what that has meant for the Belarusian people and the lack of a special envoy for Belarus, there's nobody who can help encourage the Europeans and the U.S. to work together or serve as a conduit to the opposition movement. So can you talk about what you're thinking with respect to a special envoy for Belarus, and when might we see that appointment happen?
No, thank you very much, Senator, for raising that. And yes, two things. As you know, day in, day out, we have the Vilnius-based, Lithuania-based Belarus Affairs Unit that's embedded in our embassy, and they're doing the day in, day out contact because so much, as you know, the democratic opposition is in Lithuania. But to your point, we're very actively looking at moving forward with the special envoy. What I'm considering right now, looking at, is dual-hatting a very senior official in our European Affairs Bureau to also serve as the envoy, to be able to then go in and out, engage at senior levels with the opposition, even as the Belarus Affairs Unit that's based in Lithuania does the kind of day in, day out engagement.
And so do you have a timetable for when you hope to make that happen?
I hate to say very soon, but very soon. I promise you, very soon.
I will hold you to that. So the next time I see you, hopefully, it will be done. I also want to say how pleased I am to see the robust funding for the Western Balkans in the President's budget, particularly increased funding for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also very pleased to see the work that the State Department has done with our European allies to encourage Serbia and Kosovo to come to some agreement. And I wonder if you could talk about what kind of role the Congress might play and whether there are particular incentives that we should be thinking about to ensure that that agreement actually gets implemented.
Thank you. This is, I think, a hopeful thing. That is the progress that's been made between Serbia and Kosovo, particularly an agreement that was reached just this past weekend to implement, with an implementation roadmap, understandings between them on the path to normalization. And I think what's significant about it, besides the fact that both countries have nominally agreed to do it, is that that's also embedded, those commitments are embedded in their respective European Union accession plans. So that gives them some incentive, I hope, to follow through. We have been, as you pointed out, intimately involved in helping get to this result. The European Union has done a very good job. We have been there every single step along the way. I've engaged both Prime Minister Kurti and President Vučić on numerous occasions on this. So I think there's a moment, there's a positive moment. But to your point, I think it would be tremendously helpful if, in your own engagements with, for example, parliamentarians in both countries, the clear support of the Congress of the United States for moving forward and for implementing these agreements, I think, could be critical. And to some extent, for example, both leaders have to navigate differences of opinion in their legislatures about this. I think your voice on this could make a real difference. So I'd strongly encourage that, as well as in your engagements with the leaders themselves.
I certainly think there's a lot of interest on the part of the members of this committee in doing that and thinking about how we can be supportive of the implementation of the agreement actually happening. One of the issues, as you know, is non-recognition by a number of European countries. Is this an issue that you are raising with those 5 countries, and are you seeing any progress?
It's very much an issue that we're raising, we'll continue to raise, but I also think this agreement, again, assuming it moves forward, actually puts us on a path to toward recognition by these countries. Now, Serbia itself, that may be another matter for some time, but if they get to a normalized relationship, that would, I think, have very positive effects just in the day in, day out interactions, and I think we'll eventually get there. But for the 5 holdout countries, the fact that both countries now have reached this agreement, and assuming they implement it, that will, I think, move them to toward recognition.
I agree. I certainly think it helps, and I think it's really important for the people in both Kosovo and Serbia to see some benefit in their personal lives from that kind of an agreement that reduces tensions and hopefully moves both countries towards membership in the EU. On Lebanon, another area where they are facing real challenges, what are we doing to try and encourage the government of Lebanon to implement necessary reforms in order to get the IMF and the World Bank to support the economic efforts that need to happen there, and what more can we do?
This is another very significant challenge. The reality is, without sugarcoating it, is that the economy is in a tailspin. And you've got vacancies in the presidency, in the cabinet. Parliament needs to actually elect a president. That's long in the making. Form a government, and on that basis be able to actually implement the reforms that were necessary to secure an IMF program. So in part, there's a chicken-egg problem here between the necessary movement on the political side and what we believe is vital on the economic side. It really is, as best we can tell, the only way out, the only way to pull back from the precipice. I don't see an international bailout coming. I really think the IMF program is critical, but to get to the IMF program, you've got to have a government in place. At the same time, we have been a very significant donor of assistance. We continue to focus on livelihood support for 2 critical institutions, the Lebanese Armed Forces and the Internal Security Forces. These are the state guarantors of Lebanon's sovereignty, and they've been incredibly challenged. The value of the dollar equivalent in salary to a member of the Lebanese Armed Forces has declined, by 90%. So their purchasing power has basically gone to zero. That's what we've been trying to shore up. It's really important that these institutions stay and stick together. It's critical for the state, and of course, it's critical to push back against Hezbollah, trying to say, no, we're going to do that because these institutions can't. So we're very, very focused there, and we, of course, have also been focused on some energy agreements that we're working to do, and there are a number of challenges that come with those, but I think there is at least some hope on the energy supply side that we're very actively working on. But this is usually challenged.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.